Good morning, SML, and happy Friday. We are in the thick of the playoff push. It is week 14. We're about halfway through week 14 now. Coming down to the wire. Playoffs about to get started. Playoffs? What's going on, Matt? Good morning.
Yeah, what's up, Meats? I'm excited. You hit the nail on the head. Playoff time, and we've actually got some new blood in the SML. Whether they came into a good team or a good record or a bad record, they're going to have some say in this race. So it's exciting.
So, no point in getting around it. We're going to talk playoffs today. Who's in? Who's out? So let's just start with the new guys. Since we talked about the new guys, I don't know. Do you think any of them are going to make the playoffs? All right, Doc's out of the picture. He inherited a 1-10 team. And then let's see. Patriots inherited a crap team. I don't know how many wins. Probably 0. Like 0-7 probably. And then you got Jay Smoove on the Chargers. No, I'm sorry. That's Dan still at the Raiders. Just got my pictures mixed up. Jay Smoove on the Raiders. He's the Chargers in the primer. That's why I was confused. All those chat bubbles with the split logos, that confuses me half the time. So we got Jay Smoove on the Raiders. He's sitting at 7-5. And then we have, who's the other guy? I'm blanking.
Spades is the Ravens.
Spades is the Ravens, our temporary owner. Jury's out. I don't know when October's supposed to be coming back. I would assume by the start of next season. So we'll just say Spades is going to be on it for the rest of this season, and we'll see from there. I don't know if any of them are going to make the playoffs.
Well, obviously 2 of them are eliminated right off the bat. You touched on it, Doc and Double Rice. They inherited teams that don't have a chance. So that leaves the Raiders and the Ravens. The Raiders have the best record. They have 5 losses. The Ravens now have 6, but they're not going to make it either. I don't know how the game with Prime went down. I know they had a lot of disconnects. They're going to restart. I don't know when, but I'm assuming he's going to lose that game. Even if he wins it, he's got Bomber. He's going to lose that game. He'll probably beat Fins. He'll probably beat Mike, but he's going to lose to Dan. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Ravens are going to win every game that he has left. He's going to beat the Packers, going to beat the Bengals, he's going to beat the Rams, he's going to beat me. That's going to put him at 11-6. And I think he might actually end up being the odd man out because I think he needs some help and the only place he's going to get it would be DW, and he would have to lose, I think, all 4 of his next games. So I'm going to go with none of the new guys getting the playoffs.
Okay, so AFC Playoff Standings right now, since the 2 new guys that are in the playoff picture are in the AFC. As of this moment right now, the Browns are your 1 seed by virtue of having played 1 more game than the Bills. However, if Faz wins this week, he will reclaim that 1 seed at 11-2. So Faz is the 2 seed right now. 3 seed is the Chiefs leading that division at 9-3. Maybe 10-3, maybe 9-4. That game hasn't happened yet. I mean, it's happened like 4 times, but it hasn't happened yet. And the 4 seed is not even worth mentioning. That's the AFC South, 5-8. It's a 3-way tie there at 5-8, but Coop is leading it based on tiebreakers right now. 5 seed, 10-3 Jets. 6 seed myself, 9-4 Dolphins. And then it will come down to tiebreakers after advance, but right now it's the 7-5 Raiders in the 7 seed. On the outside looking in, you got the Chargers at 7-5. They've won 7 straight games, so I think we were both right on our money in saying 0-5 is not the end of the season for Dan. 7-6 Ravens, and you at 7-5. I think that's pretty much everybody that's going to be vying for a spot. Yes, it is.
Yep, that covers it.
So, okay, you said the Raiders are in that playoff picture right now. They're out. Give me another team that's in the playoff picture right now, or not. Tell me if you think that's set outside of the Raiders.
Yeah, so I kind of, in my notes, I put down teams I said that I consider solidify them as in, and then I put some maybes on the side, and those are the teams on the fringe. So on the AFC, my ins, guaranteed they're going to make the playoffs, no question about it. The Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Bills, the Browns, and whoever wins the AFC South. Because rules state, and we've looked into this, we do have to let the winner of the AFC South into the playoffs. The lawyers said we can't get around it, we got to do it. So it is what it is. And I'm not going to touch on them much further. My maybes, I have the Chargers, the Ravens, and the Jets, and that's my three-way race. The Jets, a lot of this depended on what the Jets would do against the Saints, and they just lost, or they just beat the Saints. So he's 10-3, and the Ravens are 7-6. I think the Jets would have to lose every single game that they play to keep to allow the Ravens to have a chance. He does have 3 really tough games in Paulie, and Faz. He's got the Jags squished in the middle of all that. I think he wins that game. It's possible we could see a tiebreaker here at 11-6, but I think the Jets and the Chargers get in. Dan is on a tear. He's got things figured out. I don't know what he's going to do against the Giants this week, who's a very formidable opponent. He's going to make the playoffs. He'll figure out a way. So the Ravens are the odd man out in my maybe group, and the Chargers and the Jets round out the rest of the AFC.
Yeah, you know what? I pretty much agree with you completely. The 5 teams that you said were in. I'm going to disagree about myself for a second. Bills, Browns, Chiefs, and the AFC South, they are in. And then you're going to look at 3 wild card spots between DW, myself, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Ravens, and you as the Steelers. DW, he's got 10 wins. He's got the Jaguars on the schedule. As long as he beats the Jaguars, he should be fine. Because I've said it from the start, 11 wins is going to get you in. And that may be the way that it is for the entire cycle in the AFC. The NFC is a different story. We'll get to them. As far as I go, I do have the benefit of having the tiebreaker over the Raiders and over the Ravens, so that helps. However, I do have a couple losable games coming up. I got the Jets again, just off the top of my head here coming up. I think next advance. I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that.
That's correct. I'm looking at it now. You have the Jets next.
Cool. I have the league pulled up. I could have just looked over there. And then I have the Saints. So those are 2 games that I could see myself losing pretty easily. Both guys have been playing extremely well, and I think the only reason I beat the Jets the first time is because he got taken out of the game mid-game, basically. As for that 7 seed, it's looking like, yeah, I mean, you can't take it away from Dan. Dan might even grab that 6 seed. I don't think he's pretty much out of the running for the 5 seed at this point, but it's not out of the question. And if Dan grabs that 5 seed, watch out, because he's going to go on a run. He's going to get to play the AFC South in the first round. Whoever really, I mean, sorry, AFC South, we're going to talk about you, but whoever gets that 5 seed, I mean, that's virtually a bye week. I mean, not literally. You still have to win the game, and those guys have beaten guys that they probably shouldn't have. But, you know, it's definitely the easiest path for a wild card team by far. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said. I think I agree completely. I do think I will get in. I just don't think it's like a lock.
Yeah, when I was doing my research, and not to put any pressure on you, I didn't see you losing another game. I thought all 4 of these games you probably win. Obviously not easily. The Jets and the Saints are very formidable opponents. Field has shown that he can beat some really good players. He's going to be playing for something, because even though he's 5-8, he's tied for the division lead. He's gonna want to win that game, and he's gonna try his hardest to do it. So I think you could go 4-0, and you've got yourself some wiggle room that if you do slip up on one of these games, or honestly even 2 of them, I think you're fine. The AFC, again, the 5th seed might be, I mean, it might be the 1 seed is the most coveted, and the second most coveted is in the AFC is the 5 seed, because you get the AFC South winner who, although I will say, if you're the 5 seed and you're going to get up against a potential division winner with a losing record, I guess you can't be 500 anymore, so it's probably going to be a losing record. That's a lot of pressure because you're expected to win that game, and we've pounded on the AFC South a lot. That they get to play with nothing to lose. Even ZZ at 3-9, he's only what is that a game and a half back because of the way it shakes out. I think he is a game and a half back because he's played one less game than the others. What a wild division. I don't know what's going to happen.
We'll get to them in just a second. Back to your point about being the most coveted spot, I think it is. Other than number 1, obviously. Because think about it, number 2, still a cushy spot, but you got to play in the wild card round. And you'll be going up against a 7 seed, which is not going to be a pushover. We're going to have 6 very good teams make the playoffs and the AFC South. Sorry, you guys are just the punching bag today. I'm sorry. So, I mean, that 7 seed really could upset that 2 seed, especially if that 2 seed is maybe a guy like Bomber who's been down on his luck lately. And then the 3 seed's going to play the 6 seed. That's going to be a good matchup no matter who it is. And then 5 versus 4 is just 5's going to win that 100% of the time. I'd be shocked if they didn't.
Yep, I agree with that. I think the 5 seed will. I think the 4 seed will always be the AFC South winner, and I think the 5 seed will win probably 100% of those playoff games.
And I mean that's not totally unrealistic because you look at the real NFL and you're like, okay, well the worst division winner going up against the best wild card team. That best wild card team's usually better than the worst division winner. That's just how the standings shake out. You usually get a division with 2 very good teams in it.
Absolutely.
I think it's realistic. All right, so let's talk AFC South now. We've already been bashing on them, but let's talk on a positive note. Who's going to win it? Because we got a 3-way tie at 5-8, and then ZZ at 3-9. He's not out of it.
Yeah, this is probably the hardest question I've ever had to answer because no one really sticks out. They have, Field and Mike have some impressive wins. Field beat Prime, and Mike slaughtered the 10-3 Jets. I'm sure GW would love to have that game back at this point. He'd pretty much be in. But I think I wanted to lean Coop here, but he's out of town. He's going to drop 2 games, and I don't know if I'm assuming that he's going to lose both computer games. And if that happens, I think he's out of it at 10 losses. Because I think both of those are division games, and that's going to hurt the tiebreakers. I know the Titans one is obviously a division game. I don't know who he plays after that. So I'm going to honestly say that I think that Field comes out of this, and I think he comes out of it 8-9.
8-9. So you think he goes 3-1?
I think he goes 3-1. Yeah, I think he goes 3-1. Gosh, I'd have to bet against myself because I think you beat him. He plays me, and boy, he might be 7-10. Field actually might end up being 7-10 and winning the division.
It could
now
happen.
That I look at it,
and you know
I think
what?
I'll beat him.
8 losses for everybody in the division right now. I mean, one more loss for all of them, and we're going to see a sub 500 division winner. Can we see a 10-loss division winner? It's possible. I agree with you. You know what? I'm going to take Field too, and here's why. Quoting Prime there. I was ready to sell everything. All the stock that I put in the Titans after last week's episode, I was ready to sell. He traded for AB and Gronk. That was probably about 2 weeks ago in real life. It just so happened to be 6 days before we recorded. So it's really been about 2 weeks. After he traded for AB and Gronk, he went 1-3, and I was ready to sell. Then week 12, he beats the Patriots. Not a pushover. Heads into the bye week, and he comes out and he beats the Jaguars. Now he's tied for the division lead. 2 straight wins. I'm back in on the Titans. I was out. I'm back in. Titans are winning this. They have the easiest schedule of the remaining games. I think I mean, you're right. 2 winnable games. You got to win both of them. That's the 49ers and the Texans. You have to win those games. If you don't, you're done. You lose one or the other, you're done. And then you got me and you. So, Eminem in the Titans schedule. I don't know what's going to happen in those games. I would assume we will both beat him, but you never know, and I'm not going to write him off as an easy game. 7-10, I mean, really, it's going to come down to tiebreakers, I think, because ZZ's got so I said Fields got the easiest schedule, but ZZ has the easiest schedule. I think ZZ could win 3 of his remaining games. Will he? Probably not, no, but he could. That would put him at 6-11. I have to do math now because they added that 17th game. I think everybody else is going to lose 3 more games? It could happen. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It'd be the most wild thing, and I don't know if this is most mathematically possible. I'd love somebody smarter than me to do the math. What if it comes down to a 4-way 6-11 tie?
And I think it could, because looking at the division standings and then the divisional records, they've all played 5 games. Well, the Titans and the Colts have played 5 games in the division, so they each have 1 left. And then the Jags and the Texans each have 2 divisional games left. So they're not going to beat up on each other a whole lot. So like some other divisions that we'll talk about. So it's very possible that I'm not doing any math here, but I think they could potentially do it where they all end up with the same record. One thing I will say, and I just noticed this, Coop did lose his CPU game to Field. Field beat Coop's CPU. So that was Coop's first loss in the AFC South. So he is 3-1 in the division, while our projected winner, Field, is 2-3. If there's a tie, it doesn't look good for us because Coop's next game is against the Jets. It is against the Texans. Excuse me. So he might actually drop a second game. So, boy, Coop was sitting in the driver's seat until he went on vacation because he hadn't lost a single game in the division. He had the tiebreaker outright. But that's not so much the case anymore. He's probably going to have 2 losses.
I really don't know what to do, but I am just rooting for a 4-way 6-11 tie. That's all I want.
Yep. Let's just root for chaos. That's what we started this cycle on, was chaos. Let's just continue it through week 17 or week 18. Excuse me. I'm going to make that mistake a lot.
If we get that, I'm going to be spamming the Burning Elmo gif like all week. All right, we've talked about the AFC enough. Let's talk NFC. We've got right now the 1 seed is the 11-1 Cardinals. The 2 seed is the 9-3 Lions by virtue of tiebreaker over the 3 seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 9-3. 4 seed is the disappointing 6-6 Cowboys. 5 seed is the Saints at 8-5. Seahawks half game back by virtue of not playing yet. Yeah, haven't played yet. 8-4 as the 6 seed, and the Bears, who have fallen off hard at 7-5 in the 7 seed. On the outside looking in, you got 3 6-6 teams: the Vikings, the Panthers, and the Washington football team. It's extremely interesting, this NFC, especially the wild card race. I don't think the top is as interesting as maybe the AFC is. Who do you think's in? Who do you think's out?
Well, so I did the same thing with the NFC. My ins, shorter list than the AFC. Cards, Bucks, Lions, Seahawks. I think those first 3, Cards, Bucks, Lions, who's going to refute that? I think it gets a little bit murky down below. I did put the Seahawks in. I think Noel's a good player, and I think that's a good team. A good team right now in the current state of Madden 22. I think that's a good team. Russell Wilson is a stud quarterback. He can scramble, which is what you want in this game. Great receivers, and on defense, Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams have. I think they have the same one of the same abilities where they hit stick a lot. It's harder to get fumbles, but his last game, Bobby Wagner just lit somebody up, and I think it ended up winning him the game because it caused a fumble. I think that's a good enough team for him, and so I have him in. On the outside looking in, obviously the Bears, the Vikings, the football team, the Cowboys, and the Saints. I only think one NFC East team is getting in, um, because the Washington football team, they don't play a single game. Their last 5 games, I believe, are against their entire division. I think the Eagles are the same. I think the only team between the top 3 NFC East teams that plays outside of their division is the Cowboys, and they play the Cardinals. And because of that, I think I'm going to cross off Dallas because they're going to lose that game. And my NFC East winner is the football team. So that gives me 5 teams. So then give me the Vikings and the Saints, rounding it out.
Okay.
So that eliminates the Bears and the Cowboys.
It won't happen. I'm just gonna, but I just want to put this out there. The Giants are 2-10. They have a good owner, and they now have an outside shot at winning the division. It won't happen. I'm saying they're too far back at 2-10. I think that's 4 games back.
And no wins in the division.
And no wins. So it won't happen, but it could, and that's all I care about. I would love to see 2 7-10 teams in the playoffs. That'd be hilarious.
He's winning the division next year. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. He's winning the division next year, but not this year.
Worst to first, you think?
Absolutely, 100%.
All right, I have to agree with that because he just beat my ass. So, all right, yeah, I'm gonna sort of agree with you. I'm gonna take the Cowboys just for argument's sake. I like Grams. I think he can rebound. He started strong and has disappointed since, with a loss to the Saints, a loss to the Raiders, a loss to the Chiefs. That's 3 straight losses. I don't like what I see. Week 14, he's got the football team. That's a must-win game. He's got the Giants. Not necessarily must-win. I think he'll probably lose. But, it should be a good game either way. Then you got the football team again. Must-win game. Gonna lose to the Cardinals. Not even going to talk about it. And then you got the Eagles. Must-win game. So, if he wins 3 of those games, that puts him at 9-8? I think that gets in. I think that wins the division, especially if he sweeps the football team. Yeah, so I'm going to take the Cowboys. I know you said you were going to take the football team. I'm going to take the Cowboys. NYT is going to kill me in chat, but that's fine. Panthers, I'm going to cross them off the list. They're out. I haven't even looked at the schedule. I'm sorry, Woods. I love you, but you're out.
I didn't even write them down. Sorry, Woods.
He's sitting at 6-6. He's in the thick of that playoff race, but he's averaging 5 points less per game than he's allowing, which is telling me that he's getting blown out because he's 6-6, but somehow has that negative point differential. Oh, by the way, that's the same negative point differential as the football team. Not that point differential really tells full story, because yes, guys can get blown out once and all of a sudden it flips things, but it does tell a lot about how the season is going. Vikings have an even point differential, 28-28, and the Cowboys have a positive point differential despite losing 3 straight games. I'm still going with the Cowboys. 1 seed's done, that's the Cardinals. 2 seed, I'm going to take the Lions just because Paulie has been looking not as good as he was at the start of the season. The 4 seed is... I have to go back to the right screen because the good wild card team is screwing me up. The 4 seed is going to be the Cowboys. 5 seed, I don't know who to take, man. I guess I'll go with the Saints because they're there right now, and I believe in them the most out of everybody else we've talked about. The 6 seed, I guess, will be the Seahawks. I don't know. You know what? How about this? I'm taking the Seahawks out. Seahawks are out of the playoffs. Noel, wow. I was a believer in you all last cycle, and you made me pay for it. So, you know what? You're out of the playoffs. You get back in the playoffs, 8-4, you're looking good. I want to start believing again, but I just can't. I have trust issues now thanks to your last cycle. You did this to yourself. I'm going to put the Vikings in. Vikings and Bears are going to be the 2 final wild card teams. It's going to come down to record, obviously, but I don't know who's going to be 6, who's going to be 7, but it will be Bears and Vikings. We're going to have 3 NFC North teams in that playoff in the NFC, and that's going to really push that question that we brought up a couple of weeks ago. Who's the best division in the SML? That's going to put them up there towards the top of that conversation.
For sure, yeah. I think Dom's going to turn it on. He has been really inconsistent, and some of that's been Kellen Mond. But this guy's a solid player. When you watch him play, he has the it factor. I think he's a good player, regardless of the 6-6 record. He goes to the school of Faz. He's got 2 games against the Bears. He could really turn. No, even if he loses to me, and goes to 6-7, he gets to play the Bears twice. He can totally reverse his fate. Woods has the Buccaneers twice. That's why I didn't even need to write him down. I think one person we're not talking about, and you can grin all you want, but there is an outside shot of this, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, and Tiny, they just beat the Jets. Defensive domination, offensive vomit, but defensive domination. He's got 8 losses. He's 2 games back of the football team and the Cowboys, but every single game he plays from here on out, he's on bye right now, the next 4 are all against the NFC East. So Tiny's kind of, I don't know if he controls his own destiny because I didn't do any math, but he could make a little bit of a push. I don't think he will, but he certainly could.
Tiny, I love you. That said, Tiny has made the playoffs before, yes. However, you put him up against the resumes of everybody else in the NFC who is in that playoff picture. I think Klink's a better player historically, just because he's more consistent. I think Noel is about on the same level, at least last cycle. But the cycle prior to that, he was going 13-3. I think Future has had a history of dominant regular seasons, not so much lately, but I think he's got a better resume. D Muse, he's made a Super Bowl recently, as in last season, I think. Right? That was last season, right?
Last cycle.
Who made the Super Bowl in the NFC last year?
Faz.
What about the AFC?
Me.
Yes. Okay, you. I always forget about you.
That's fair.
Okay, so last cycle, that was probably, 2-3 seasons ago. Woods, okay, Tiny's been better than Woods the last 2 years. Or just about the same level. NYT has made a Super Bowl before as well. So, here's Mark Cuban, and for that reason, I'm out.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just wanted to bring up, because he's not on the list on Daddy Leagues, but he is one of the teams, and I think the only team not on that list that even has a shot. Colt has 8 losses too, but I don't see him making a push. I do want to touch on the Saints real quick, and I want to talk directly to Klink. I don't have a Shark Tank reference, but I'm talking right to him. Stop throwing interceptions, my dude. You are a great player. He knows it. I tend to watch him while I'm working. He tends to play games while I'm at work. I don't know how that works. And I turn my computer monitor, which is right next to my work laptop. And so a lot of times I'm not watching the game. I'm just listening, and then I'll take a break and watch. And his name is Matt as well. And so he yells, he just gets on himself, and he'll say, "Oh, Matt, why'd you throw that?" And it just gets my attention every time. I just think it's funny. That's a tangent. But he has thrown 27 interceptions with Jameis Winston. I don't know if that's accounting for the ones that he threw today against the Jets. He should have won that game, but he just threw, and he lost by 3, and he threw 4 interceptions. He doesn't. If he cuts that to 2 interceptions, he probably wins that game by 2 scores. Klink is the most inconsistent person right now in the SML in a way where there's so much potential in the guy that if he can clear up those inconsistencies. Honestly, I'm going to put him up in the S tier of the NFC. I think he's good. I think that team is good. So, Klink, stop throwing interceptions and make a run in the NFC.
Okay, so Daddy League says 30 interceptions. I want to put this out there. If Klink throws fewer interceptions, I mean, he's what, 8-5, 8-4, right?
He's 8-5 right now.
He's 8-5. Okay, he's 8-5. He's thrown 30 interceptions. If you clean that up, dude, you might be one of the best teams in the league. Okay, so he has thrown at least one interception in every game except for his win over Tiny, which he only won by 4 points despite not throwing an interception.
He lost to Tiny.
Oh, you're right, he did. Sorry, the Daddy League's score is weird looking.
The defensive juggernaut that is Tiny.
Yeah, 16-20, that's a loss. That's weird. However, he lost to Faz only by 6, despite throwing 6 interceptions, which was a season high. Tell me he doesn't win that game if he throws 4 interceptions. You can't. I mean, he probably would.
Mm-hmm.
And to be in the conversation for beating guys like Faz with 4 picks on their record is crazy. To be within 1 score after 6 interceptions in any game is wild. Like you just said, he just lost to DW today, and he threw 4 picks, and he lost by 3. Okay, he threw 2 picks against Dallas and won by 14. He threw 4 picks against the Falcons and won by 14. 4 picks and won by 14. 4 picks against Washington and won by 7. It's what he is doing is pretty crazy. He threw 3 picks against the Packers, lost by 17, but that was week 1, and we all know what has happened to the lawyer since then.
Yeah, and looking at the box score of that Jets game that just happened, DW only has 2 offensive touchdowns, a touchdown run by Hunt and a pass from Wilson to Mims. So that means he got 2 touchdowns. It must have been 2 pick sixes. It's even worse. I mean, if you look at this game, if you don't actually look into the detail of it, or if you didn't watch it, you'd think, oh, close game, good game, DW won, 2 great players. And they are 2 great players. But Klink should have won that game going away when you actually dive into the details. TW scored 31 points, and only 14 of them, 17 of them, I guess, came on offense. Although maybe that one of those 2, so maybe 2 picks went for pick sixes, and maybe one of the other picks gave him an easy field goal. He may have only scored 14 points on offense. So if Klink can clean that up, and I don't know if it's him, I don't know if it's Winston. Again, I just hear him get mad at himself when he's playing and say his name and gets my attention. But if he can clean that up, whether it's him or Winston, gosh, Paulie has 3 losses. He's only 2 back amidst his 30 interception season. He could make a run for this division. He still can, but he would be sitting pretty with the game against Paulie left if he just didn't throw these interceptions.
If he could go from throwing, like, I'm assuming it's going to be around 40 interceptions, to throwing 15 interceptions, 20 even. I mean, he's in the conversation for the 1 seed. But as it sits, he's probably going to lose the division because of those interceptions. And now, I'll be the first to tell you can't judge a game based on the box score. I mean, some of these picks could be coming in garbage time when he's just trying to get it close. Or he's up by a bunch and he just gets lazy with it. So, I mean, you can't just say, oh, he threw a bunch of interceptions, that means he's a bad passer. Because it could just be you have to force the envelope. And context is extremely important when looking at any stat, really. I mean, and just this is the best example that I can think of off the top of my head. A couple of years ago in the NFL, Ravens-Titans playoff game, Lamar Jackson accounted for over 500 total yards, but most of that was in garbage time. So you can look at that and be like, oh, Lamar Jackson had a great game. He threw 2 picks, but he accounted for over 500 yards. He didn't have a great game. That was his second season as a starter, and the Ravens lost that game, and he was throwing a bunch in garbage time, and that's how you get a bunch of yards. So you can't judge how a game goes based on the box score. And I know we're just looking at stats here, so maybe that 30 interceptions doesn't tell a full story. But you can't tell me 6 interceptions and a 7-point loss doesn't tell you the story of that game.
Absolutely, and like I said, I saw some of it, and I know for sure it did. And of course, like you say, I think one of the interceptions was at the very end of the game. He got the ball back down 3 with like 30 seconds left, so he's obviously trying to push it downfield. Obviously, there's a story behind every interception, but he should have won that game. I'm sure he's kicking himself. I'm sure Faz is gonna kick him too. But Klink is on my radar as a potential Super Bowl participant coming out of the NFC. I'm not going to say this season, but I think he just needs to figure things out a little bit. Maybe the new patch, maybe he needs to get a little more practice like the rest of us, but he was throwing picks before that. But maybe he needs a QB, I don't know. But he's on my radar, and this will come up in future shows, probably into next season, that Klink's on my radar as a solid player that might make a push in the NFC, and I think they should be aware of him.
They gave me an idea for a future segment. Thank you. Okay, so I think we talked about it enough. You got anything else to add about the playoff picture, or we'll just get into our locks of the week?
No, that's all I want to talk about. I'm really excited to not have to predict who's in the playoffs and just be able to talk about who is in and see what you and I think about how that's all going to shape up once everybody's in.
Okay, so last week for our locks of the week, I talked all that shit and I didn't back it up. I went 2-2, you went 4-0. So good on you. Season standings right now, I am 7-4, you are 6-5. So you close that 3-game gap to a 1-game gap. And for that reason, I will not be talking as much shit this week. All right, so we're going to pick games for weeks 14 through 18. So we're going to finish the regular season, even though we might not be in week 18 by the time this next week's episode is out. That remains to be seen. But I didn't want to leave like 1 week that we had to pick. So we're going to pick for the rest of the regular season, starting in week 14. I will let you go first, since you are losing. I'm still going to talk a little bit of shit.
Yeah, that I was going to say. You just said you weren't. But fair game. I needed that week because that made this interesting, because now it's... I know we're not really playing for a whole lot here, but it makes it interesting. This is a big last 5 weeks of the season. Week 14, give me in the marquee matchup a prime time SML action, maybe some commentary, hopefully. Give me Faz over Pauly.
That's a big game. It's Daddy League's game of the week. I know that doesn't mean much. I agree with you. I think the Bills are going to win that one. As for my pick for week 14, I'm going to go to a division that we were just talking about quite a bit. I'm locking in the Cowboys over the Washington football team. I picked the Cowboys to win the division. Got to pick them to win this game because it's a must-win game.
Yeah, Bills, Buccaneers, I think that's the marquee matchup based on record and history of the owners. But if you really break it down, I think you probably picked the most meaningful game of the week, because those guys are locked in a tie for first in that division. I don't think two teams are coming out of it, so that's a huge game for NYT and Gramps. Yeah,
I mean, Faz is pretty much locked into a top 2 seed. I mean, you could see him falling to the 3 seed. Pauly's kind of the same way. I don't think he's going to choke the division, so he's basically locked into a top 3 seed. All right, number 15, week number 15. I'm going to go to the worst matchup on paper, but might be the most fun game to watch because you have no idea what's going to happen here. We're going to the Toilet Bowl, and I'm taking the Bengals over the Broncos.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I honestly thought that one might be for the number 1 pick. But Spooky won today, beat Fig yesterday, and so that's a big win for Spooky, I guess. But yeah, so it still could be for the number 1 pick, I guess, if Fins wins. But we'll see what happens there. I looked in the opposite direction, and I went with what will be the most talked up game. Is it going to be the most anticipated? Who knows, but Prime will make sure that it is. And I'm going to take Prime over the Chargers, who I just talked up. I think this is the only game that Dan loses the rest of the season. I just think the Chiefs are too tough. I think he's still trying to figure out things on defense. I was able to move the ball a little bit on him, and I don't have the Chiefs, and I'm not as good as Prime on offense, so I'm taking Prime over Dan.
I think that's an interesting pick. So you're going to say, oh, Dan has moved to 8-5 since we started recording. What happened?
Must have beat the Giants.
He beat the Giants. 24-17. Chargers beat the Giants. This is old news to you, but that just happened. So, so the 8-5 have won 8 games in a row, headed into a Week 15 matchup with the Chiefs, and you're going to take the Chiefs, who have taken a few losses they shouldn't have, including to the 5-win Titans. I think that's a good pick. I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm now rooting for Dan since you picked him. Well, I always root against Prime anyway, but that's besides the point. He knows I love him.
I took Prime over Dan.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm rooting for Dan.
Okay.
Because I want you to lose that.
Gotcha.
You're out here confusing me, man.
Yeah, I got confused. I thought you said I picked Dan, so I misunderstood you.
No, I'm rooting for Dan now that you picked Prime to win.
Gotcha.
Okay. Week 16. I'll let you take your first pick.
All right, Week 16. Little favoritism for my co-host here. I just talked up Klink as being a potential NFC powerhouse, and I do think he is, but he's got an interception problem, and for that reason, I think that your Dolphins take out his Saints.
I appreciate the love. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it, but we are not allowed to pick against ourselves. We've not run into a situation yet where we've picked ourselves in a matchup. I suppose there wouldn't be an issue picking yourself to win a game. There's no conflict of interest there, I guess. But we're not allowed to pick against ourselves, because then you're like, oh, okay, I can just throw the game, which
exactly.
The SML strongly advises against.
Yeah, and locked in is serious business. I would throw a game just to beat you at this.
Yes, man. I don't want to listen. I know you would throw a game just for a free sandwich. It's fine.
Absolutely.
All right. So you took me over Klink. I don't have much to offer about that. Klink's gonna be a tough game. I think it's gonna be close. So I thought about taking the Chiefs against you, but now you picked me, and I'm like, oh, all right, I'm not gonna do that now. So I'm going to take in what might be a playoff preview. I don't know how the seeding will work out, but two NFC teams that are both in the wild card picture right now. I'm taking the Bears over the Seahawks. No, I mentioned you earlier. I'm not a believer anymore. You have to make me a believer. So you win this game, maybe I consider believing in you again. But right now I'm taking the Bears. I just think they've been the higher upside team this year.
Good pick. It's an interesting game, because I think on offense they both play a very similar style. They like to get their quarterbacks on the move, with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach each other on defense. They should know the other one's offense really well, since they basically run it. So good pick. I think it's a toss-up. Again, I'm high on Noel. I played him, and he played me tough. I mean, Future beat me. I did beat Noel, but Future beat me, so I'm not knocking him. But yeah, that's going to be a great game. I didn't even notice it when I was looking. I'm excited for that.
It should be a great game, and it could go a long way to determining who misses and who makes the playoffs in the NFC.
Absolutely. There's going to be a lot of those.
You darn right. It's going to be a good race on both conferences. Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to Week 17, and I'm going to make my pick here. And you know what? I wasn't sure how to feel about this game. And you know what? I'm really still not. Because both of these teams are kind of stumbling right now. Both of these teams currently have 3 losses. You would think on paper, based on resume, that one team's should be a favorite. And I think the team that I'm going to pick probably is the favorite. I'm taking the Buccaneers over the Jets. And I think the Jets, I would have probably picked the Jets if they hadn't just lost to the Eagles.
Yeah, you actually stole mine. I had the Bucs over the Jets too.
Oh, you're welcome to take the Jets if you want. We can go ahead and head on that one.
We're not taking the Jets here. I got a lot of faith in Paulie. I think that's a really good team. I think Brady's just an absolute animal. And I had the Bucks over the Jets, but I did have a backup plan. And my backup plan was QP's Lions over Knowles Seahawks.
Okay, good. I like that. And I am now going to pick the Lions as much as humanly possible, except for this week, because they were my only two games I picked correctly last week. I picked the Lions in week 12 and in week 13, and if I didn't, I might have gone 0-4. So I love you, QP. That you said the Lions. Okay, yeah, I'll write that down. I forgot to write it down.
Lions over Seahawks. All
right, week 18. I'll let you pick again.
Yeah, so I kind of struggled. I think there's some solid picks in this week. Who's going to be resting starters? Obviously, with fatigue and stuff like that, that might actually be a thing. But some of the races are so close that might not be an option for most people outside of maybe Bomber and Dump. So I went ahead and went with what I think could possibly, I don't think it will, could possibly be for a division, and I took Faz over the Jets. And one reason that I did that, even if this game is not for the division, maybe it's just for seeding or maybe it's for nothing. The way Faz lost their first matchup with the fumbles, he wants to win that game and make a statement and avenge that loss. So give me the Bills over the Jets at home.
I like that pick. I think there's no way that Faz is going to get swept. I guess it could happen, but I don't think it will. I think that's a good pick. And I just got to say, I love that the NFL puts the final week of the season as all division games. I love it. Mm-hmm. It's so much fun. I don't know if Madden does that, so this might be the only time that we see it. I don't recall. I mean, they might, but I don't know. And knowing EA, probably not. So I love that the last week of the season was always great, sometimes great divisional games. And yes, sometimes you get that 1 versus 4, but sometimes you get the 1 versus 2 or the 2 versus 3. And a lot of times there's a lot of playoff implications, and that happens to be the case here. And for that reason, I'm trying to just decide on the fly between my two picks. All right, I've decided. I had two options here, and I'll walk you through both of them. The team that I am not picking is the Cowboys over the Eagles. I think the Cowboys win the game, but I don't want to lock it in. What I am going to lock in is the Titans over the Texans, and this is going to be the win that secures the Titans a playoff berth in Week 18.
Yeah, I like that. That could be for the division too. I know ZZ's 3-9, but we touched on it. That's only a game and a half back because he's played one fewer than the others. So, gosh, now wouldn't that be fun? Especially if that game, let's just say there's a possibility that if ZZ wins that game, maybe it creates the 4-way tie and the chaos. Boy, that Week 18, even though I keep forgetting about it, man, I'm just looking at the schedule right now. That is going to be an exciting week.
I hope this season between us doesn't come down to Week 18, because I might be rooting for ZZ if that's the situation. If ZZ winning would create that 6-11 tie 4 ways, I'm rooting for ZZ.
Oh, absolutely.
But otherwise, I'm rooting for the Titans because it makes me look smart. I was on their bandwagon. I'm still on the bandwagon. And they are about 80 years old at every offensive position, but they are a lot of fun. Julio and AB and Gronk, and I don't know how old Derrick Henry is, but he's got to be like 28, right?
Yeah, I think he's 28.
I'm Googling it real fast. Derrick Henry is 27. Okay, he's a little bit younger than I thought. And Ryan Tannehill is
33.
33. Oh, okay, he's older than I thought, but he's been around for a while, so I guess that makes sense. Yeah, so I mean, pretty much every impact player on offense, aside from I would assume the tight end and Derrick Henry, is over the age of 30. I mean, you could throw A.J. Brown in there too, but I would assume he's wide receiver too. I didn't look at their depth chart. But, I mean, Julio and AB now, that's an old offense. I mean, I'm interested to see how the Titans can rebuild that. Anyway, tangent over. I think that about does it for this episode. We're running a little shorter than normal, and I don't have an issue with that. It's only like 45 minutes now instead of the hour and a half. You got anything else to add, Matt?
I don't think so. I got a game against D-Muse coming up, and need to get ready for that, and just kind of watch the playoffs unfold. And hopefully next week we're either in the playoffs or we'll probably be just outside of them, but we'll have a lot to talk about. Picture will be a little bit more clear.
You want to make any bold takes about your game against D-Muse that will make you look stupid in the morning or make you look really smart?
No. I better play it safe. I don't have any room to talk with the way I've been playing it. I don't know if you saw our social media team on Twitter, but we've got fans with bags over their heads. Not good at Heinz Field, so we're not in a position to make promises, but we're going to go out there, we're going to do the best we can.
I really want you to put it on the record, because we're in a weird circumstance here where we're recording before a game that you're about to play that's going to have the result happen before the episode is released. I really want you to put something on the record. It's something. You got to give us something.
All right. You want to score? Give me the Steelers 23, the Vikings 17.
Nice, he's guaranteeing the win. I love it. Thanks for listening, guys. Don't backtrack now, Matt. And feel free to roast him in chat in the morning if he loses. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you next week.